I'm back. Voice is still terrible, guys. I apologize. It is what it is. Sometimes you get to enjoy your 3 days off, and sometimes you get to sound like this. But I'm back to talk to you guys about what you're doing today. As always, I'm not going to go through the entire rules of what I'm expecting of you today because you should know it. But generally speaking, get your packet out. We're gonna pick up where it says Spanish American War, that section of your packet. You'll be filling that out as we go. Once we get to the end, you will do some picture analysis things with the packet, and then whatever time we have left over, you should be preparing your proposals for tomorrow. Whatever group you're in, you should be trying to figure out the best details to make your proposal, fine-tuned, if you will. When it comes to behavior in the class, I expected the same type of behavior as yesterday. If it was good behavior. If you did terrible yesterday, how dare you? But be in your seats, get the packet out, watch this video, obviously. You don't need to be getting up every 2 seconds to go do something. Just do this video, call it a day. So the first thing we're going to talk about, as a quick reminder, if you were awesome yesterday, you are awesome. But if you weren't awesome, just because you're already on the list, I wouldn't throw in the towel, because that usually happens. It's a race to the bottom. Because what'll happen is it'll just compound whatever I was going to do before. You already lost the ability to use your notes on the quiz. Doesn't mean you shouldn't take notes, because then you have something to study off of. But just be better today, if that applies to you. So today we're talking about the rise and fall of empires. Then we're going to jump into the Spanish-American War. We're going to talk about a little pre-war stuff. We'll talk about the actual fighting itself, and we'll talk about the legacy of the Spanish-American War. We're going to complete the packet, and then you guys will work on your Improving America proposals, which is due tomorrow when you guys come in, when I come back. All right, let's talk about the rise and fall of empires. There's been several empires in the world that have risen and fallen. You just need to know about the ones I'm about to talk about. So I think your packet talks about what empires have fallen. The first one I want to talk about is Rome. So the Roman Empire controlled North Africa, parts of what we know today as the Middle East. They controlled pretty much all of Europe, all the way up to the what we know now as England. So what happened? Why did they go from that to, if you want to compare it to what we have now as Italy, how did they lose all of that territory? There's a lot of factors. Any historian that says it's just one thing, I would say is playing loose with facts. It's usually a combination of things. It's a perfect storm scenario. Inflation was a reason. Taxes being super high. I would say a bigger reason is the idea of multiple wars with quote-unquote barbarians and a nationalistic view that they were just better because they were better. That got them in over their head when it comes to these foreign affairs, which was all over the map. And then political instability. I mean, you had family members killing family members to keep in power. You didn't have the peaceful transition of power in Rome for centuries. This type of stuff wears and tears your ability to actually have a government worthwhile. So, yeah, Rome falls, and it's not the only one. We have the British Empire. The British Empire controlled holy Toledo a lot. You're talking parts of Australia, tons of parts of Africa, India, both states in North America and South America. There was a saying that, like the sun never sets on the British Empire, right? Because it really didn't. They controlled so much because of their navy, right? So how is it that Britain controlled almost in every continent of the world almost to being where they're at now? And it's similar stuff. Colonies demanding independence and then fighting for it. The overstretching one's military to keep these different territories in their fold. Wars that bankrupted them. And also competition with trade that took place. I mean, it's one of those things where, like, you can't control everything, and the more you control, the more you try to control, the more stuff slips through your fingers, just like Rome with their barbarian wars. So yeah, that's what caused the the British Empire to fall. All those different things. It's not just one, it's a bunch of them. Communism. Communism controlled the better part of Asia, parts of Africa, obviously in the Western Hemisphere, Cuba. And if you saw a map of how communism spread after World War II, it was like this giant red plague, right? And now what's happened to it? You know, the Soviet Union fell, and that ended that. All those African countries went back to becoming different versions of, excuse me, different versions of the governments they had once prior. And now you only have a few countries, Cuba, North Korea, Vietnam, Laos, and China, that still hold the banner of communism. So how did they fall? Well, very similar things. Economic collapse, just like what happened with both Great Britain and Rome. Overuse of the military. The same thing that happened with Rome and Great Britain, and political turmoil. See how this works? It's like these same things in history come over and over again in these different places. They learn the lesson at a different time, right? And then let's get to Spain. And the reason why we're doing this, because Spain is the enemy, if you will. I don't know any quotes. They were the enemy in the Spanish-American War. The enemy in the Spanish-American War. And Spain was also a giant empire at one time. They controlled vast amounts of South America, North America, parts of Africa. They had control in the Philippines and the parts of Asia. They had parts in Europe that they controlled. They were like top diggity dog for a while, okay? And then they go from that to controlling just the Philippines, just Spain, just a little land in Africa, and like Cuba. And they lost all of this other territory. And what the Spanish-American War is, it's this idea of nationalism. And they just want to hang on to what they still have. And they're willing to just fight tooth and nail for it, but it doesn't take that long to get it taken away from them for a variety of different reasons. So there, for right now, this first video, just know those 4 different empires, if you will. Rome, the UK, British Empire, communism, and Spain. And know like the commonalities why they fell. A lot of it has to do with military, overuse of military. Has to do with economic pressures. Has to do with political instability. We're going to get to the Spanish-American War now that I set the stage that the reason why Spain's fighting, they're trying to hold on just to this little territory called Cuba. And this is where we get involved. Let's talk about pre-war. So this is before the Spanish-American War picks up, okay? This is the steps that lead us to getting involved. And also Spain just trying to get a hold of the country that they are. Now, when the war starts, we expected it to be pretty fast, but I don't think anyone expected it to be as fast as it was. The war only lasted 3 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days. It was a short little war. It was really short. 3 months is a pretty fast time. A little over 3 months is a pretty fast time for a war. Let's talk about casualties. We'll get that out of the way. So the American casualties, first, and I'm going to say only, but that I'm not trying to say that like in the context of like those lives don't matter, because they do. But comparatively to other wars, this is a very small war of killed in action. There were, for Americans, 385 that will die because of bullets and shrapnel and that type of thing. Well, the Spanish are going to suffer far more deaths. I say double, around 800 that are going to be killed in that way. The number one killer, though, is disease. You have around 2,061 Americans died just from disease, which is significantly more than the people that died from bullets and bombs. From the Spanish side, they had 15,000 people die from disease. So you go from 385 killed on the American side to about 800 killed on the Spanish side, okay? Then you have, that's like killed in action, bullets flying, that type of thing. Then you have, from the other death perspective, the 2,061 dead from disease on the American side, but 15,000 plus from the Spanish side. They took 11 of our men prisoner. We took 40,000 people prisoner. So you can just see by the tell of the tape there that like this was ours to lose. Ours to win. I'm sorry, ours to win from the start, and theirs to lose from the start. We had one cargo ship that got sunk and one cruiser that got damaged. They had 6 small ships that got sunk, 11 cruisers that got sunk, 2 destroyers. We just like this wasn't even close. And I'll talk about these battles in a little bit, but so that's kind of like the overarching death toll in time. Let's talk about us getting into the war. First, there's a Cuban rebellion. Think of it like the American Revolution. Excuse me. But it was just for Cuba. And they're trying to break away from Spain, much like we broke away from England. Which again, this is one of the reasons why we get tied to this, is a similarity in this aspect. There's also a manifest destiny going on and some other things, but we get tied to this. Hundreds of thousands of citizens are put in guarded camps during the Cuban Rebellion. This caused hundreds of thousands of Cubans to die in 2 years. So you're talking about big death toll on them. So it's a humanitarian crisis close to us. They're only about 100 miles off of Florida. So when we're starting to see, excuse me, when we're starting to see all of this stuff going on, where we're starting to see these hundreds of thousands of people die close to our shores, this makes us go, excuse me, maybe we should get involved. So we do. And here's why we get involved. There's 6 reasons why we get involved. The first one is called the D-Loan letter. So let me explain this real quick. You know, if anyone in the room have a brother or sister, raise your hand if you have a brother or sister. Okay. I would venture a guess, for those people that have a brother or sister, you make fun of your brother or sister, or they make fun of you, right? But if somebody else outside of your family makes fun of your brother and sister, your reaction to that is, no, you don't. Like, I can pick on my little brother or sister, but you're not going to do anything to them without my say-so. That's what this D-Loan letter is, except it's not our little brother or sister, it's our president. So President McKinley, we find this letter from a Spanish ambassador talking about McKinley. They're just making fun of this guy. Like, they are running his name through the dirt. So the D-Loan letter is a letter that we found, that we got a hold of from a Spanish ambassador to somebody else from Spain, that was just completely roasting our president. This letter gets published in the papers, and the American people are like, you know, we may not like the guy either, but we're the only ones that get to make fun of him. You don't get to. So that's one of the reasons. Part 2 is the USS Maine. So about 250 die with the USS Maine. There's a ship. It explodes. A bunch of people start putting that it was the Spanish that did it. There's no proof that they did. It could have quite possibly been an internal issue with the ship. Some sort of mistake in that aspect. And I'm not just saying it as a what if. Like, it's a pretty good guess that that's probably what happened. But it doesn't matter. That's my dog, if you can hear him. It doesn't matter, because at this point, the American public have already had seen in the newspaper how Spain has been doing all these horrible things, that any issue next to our borders, we're going to blame Spain. They're the boogeyman, right? So that's why we blame them, is because it was perception is reality. The next one is the Philippines. We looked at the Philippines, and it was strategic land for us to get a hold of Asia and Asian commerce. So I think in your guided notes there, it says, like, what continent did it give us the, and by the way, you should be doing your notes, quick reminder, what continent did we, were we trying to get access to by joining this war, and specifically going after the Philippines? Asia. The Asian market is something that we've been trying to get into since we were the young little nation, right? When Columbus came over, that was his goal too, right? The spices of Asia. So this was a strategic economic thing, as well as a humanitarian one and a manifest destiny and all these other things. It was definitely an economic one. The fourth one is McKinley's message. Now, McKinley gives several arguments to why we should go, okay? The first one, now I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to read it to you. In the case of humanity, and to put an end to the barbarities, bloodshed, and starvation, and horrible miseries now existing there, it is especially our duty for this to do right at our door. Basically, the barbarism, the horrible stuff happening right next to us, we have to get involved because there's horrible stuff happening. That's argument one. Argument two for McKinley is we owe it to our citizens in Cuba, because we did have U.S. citizens that lived there. We had commerce with Cuba, to afford them the protection for life and property, and that end to terminate the conditions that deprive them of legal protection. So the other one was we were doing this to protect our economic interests as well as the interest of civilians that we had over there. Third, McKinley says we had the right to intervene, may be justified by the very serious injury to the commerce, trade, and business of our people. Again, back to economy. So the first one is there's a humanitarian thing for the people of Cuba. The second one is we have citizens that are there that we have to protect, okay? The third one is we should do this because, our wallet's going to get hit. The fourth one's weird. McKinley goes, in order to have peace, and he says this over and over again, peace this and peace that, peace this and peace this, we should go to war, which you might go, well, that's stupid. It is a common argument. Go to war to obtain peace. So that's the fourth reason why we got involved, is McKinley's war message, and he had 4 arguments to it. The fifth one is media. Thomas Edison develops this motion picture camera, and he's videoing the conflict that's going over there and then showing it to the American people in his theaters. And then when the U.S. Military get involved, we're able to see what they're doing in almost not real time, but we get to see what they're doing, not just hearing about it, we get to see it, and more people want to get involved because of that. And the last one, pride on both sides, whether it's a nationalistic pride or a patriotic pride. In this particular case, it doesn't matter. There was pride from both ends, that from the U.S. side and the Spain side, that pushed us into this. It wasn't the only thing. I just listed 5 other ones, but it definitely was an aspect to the psyche, to the mentality of why we did what we did. So what I'm going to pick up next time is the actual fighting itself. So we'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to talk about the fighting. We talked about why we got involved. Now let's talk about who's involved and what the fighting looks like. There's 2 groups of people you need to know: the Rough Riders and the Buffalo Soldiers. Those are the 2 fighting groups we're going to talk about. They're not the only people that fought, but they're a group. The Rough Riders were led by Teddy Roosevelt, future president of the United States. And they were trained on horseback. But let me explain why being trained on horseback will turn out to be not the best idea. So we trained these guys on horseback for 5 weeks, okay? How to shoot from horseback, how to reload from horseback, how to do specific tactics on horses that would allow them to get closer to the enemy. And we didn't develop a way to get the horses off the boats, because we got to go to Cuba. Like, we get on ships, and we have to actually go to Cuba. We can't just teleport there. So we could get the horses on the ships. That's easy, right? But you can't just dock those ships into Cuba, because they'll just shoot at you as you're trying to dock the ship. So sometimes you have to jump off the ships before you get to the shore. Well, they didn't think, well, what are we going to do with the horses? And we actually know there were several times that we pushed horses into the Gulf of Mexico and next to Cuba, and just try to get them to swim to shore. And a lot of them would just die. They would swim away from shore. They had drowned because they just couldn't swim good, whatever the case may be. So we trained the Rough Riders to fight with these horses for weeks, and then we can't even use them because we didn't find ways to get them. Now, eventually we did have horses. It was not like there was 0 horses, but it wasn't as many horses as we wanted over, that's for sure. So that's the Rough Riders. They fought on horseback. Teddy Roosevelt, he led the charge. The other group, and this is my personal favorite group of this particular war, is the Buffalo Soldiers. The Buffalo Soldiers are tried and tested warriors. They've been fighting in the Indian Wars, and that's what they called them. They called them the Indian Wars. And they were doing this for years, okay? They were the ones that were going after, in the Dakotas, the Sioux. They were going after the Comanche and the Apache. They were going after different groups of Native Americans, indigenous people in the Indian Wars. And they were so respected by their Native American opposition. Their enemies named them Buffalo Soldiers. And the reason why they named them Buffalo Soldiers is because the specific Native groups that they were fighting, the ones of the Sioux up in the north, they respected buffalo so much that they gave this name to these soldiers. Now, keep in mind, the Buffalo Soldiers were an all-black regiment. These were black men that were fighting, and they faced their own prejudice. That's why they were all black, because white soldiers didn't want to fight with them. And they couldn't fight with white soldiers this time. And it's not until the World War is where we start desegregating our military. So they're respected by the Native American culture. They're called the Buffalo Soldiers, and they're gonna come in there and they're gonna be tried and true. They're gonna be the guys that we look for doing most of the work during this war. I'm gonna talk about 4 battles. The Battle of Manila Bay, which is the most lopsided battle in the history of battles. So here's what happens. We took our 7 ships versus the Spanish's 8 ships. And you're like, oh, they have an advantage. No, they do not. In the Battle of Manila Bay, they had 8 wooden ships. We had 7 steel ships. I think you know who's going to win that one, right? If you're going to go in war and you're going against steel versus your like wooden ships, they did. We wiped them out. Like it wasn't even a close battle. And I think in your notes it should say like how many ships were wooden, how many ships were steel. It was 8 wooden ships and 7 steel ships. This battle was again a very fast win for us. And again, this is only last for 3 months, 3 weeks and 2 days. This whole war. So a lot of the battles that we fight are pretty fast for us to win, and it's not that long, not long trenched out battles. Los Guamos. Los Guamos is another one where we see the Buffalo Soldiers do what they do best. So what happens was the Buffalo Soldiers go to this open field at Los Guamos. And in this open field, there's this body that is in the middle of the field. See, the Spanish put this dead body in the middle of this field, okay? And what they did is they went up into like the tree line in sniper positions with sniper rifles, and they just started shooting. Now, a sniper rifle back then is different. I shouldn't say sniper rifles. It's gonna be this connotation of like Command and Conquer, Red Alert, whatever you guys play these days, whatever. But they got in sniping positions, and they were trying to pick off the Buffalo Soldiers when they went to go investigate these bodies or body. But here's the thing. When you're being sniped at, like when you're being shot from somebody that's in covered position, you would imagine if you're being shot at like that, you would retreat. Buffalo Soldiers have been being shot at for the last few years, okay? They know what it's like to be shot at, so they're not scared. So what the Buffalo Soldiers did is they didn't run away from the gunfire. They ran towards it and chased the Spanish military out of that area. Think about that for a second. They're being shot at from a group of people from a covered position. They're in an open field, the Buffalo Soldiers. And they, in all rights, probably should have retreated. But they're like, yeah, we've done this before. And they chased their shooters away. Again, Buffalo Soldiers, they're awesome. They're awesome at warfare, that's for sure. Let's get to the Battle of San Juan Heights. The Battle of San Juan Heights has to go down in this war, in this particular war, as one of the like, wow, giving credit to somebody that didn't do it. So you had Teddy Roosevelt and his Rough Riders, which, remember, they don't have their horses, okay? There's a famous picture of Teddy Roosevelt on his horse charging up San Juan Heights, the San Juan Hills. But the thing is, that never happened for 2 reasons. One, he wasn't the one that took the hill. He wasn't the one that took the San Juan Heights. The Buffalo Soldiers took the heights. They're the ones that were fighting that battle. So there's this hill, right? And if you have the high ground, you have an advantage. The Spaniards had the high ground. But the Buffalo Soldiers, they just kept pressing them, and eventually took the hill. Here comes Teddy Roosevelt, and he gets a picture with all of his Rough Riders on the top of this hill, and they print it in the papers, and it makes it look like this guy he didn't do it. Sorry, he didn't do it. He showed up later, but he got the credit for it. But them's the breaks, kids. Okay. There's other battles that took place as well in this, but as a rule, these battles overwhelmingly went towards our side, at the American side. There was one battle of Santiago Bay, that demonstrates this. We fought this battle at Santiago Bay. Every ship was sunk on the Spanish side or put aground. So we got rid of all our ships. In this battle at Santiago Bay, we lost 1 American. They lost 323 Spanish soldiers. 500 Spanish soldiers are going to be captured in this one battle. So we lost 1 casualty. They lost 300 plus the 500 prisoners. So this shows you that this battle, or this war, was, we had a significant advantage. When I get back, we'll talk about towards the end of the war. we're getting towards the end of the war. My voice is bleh, but I'm gonna get through it. We're gonna do this. So let's get to it. So one of the things I talked about is the disease was the biggest killer. One particular disease that was out there was this thing called yellow fever. Okay, so yellow fever has several symptoms. You know, you have chills, severe headaches, back pain, stomach pain. You're nauseous, you're vomiting, you have high fever. You're bleeding. It's bad stuff. Well, this was rampant through Cuba at the time, and a lot of our soldiers got it. Remember, the number one killer was disease. So that was one thing. The other thing was canned meat. The soldiers were shipped a bunch of canned meat, which, by the way, both of these things are in your guys' notes. Yellow fever being one of the diseases, but the other thing that killed them was this canned meat that was just bad. People got food sickness from this, and this led them to more susceptible to other diseases. So yeah, the canned meat not so good, right? The legacy. Let's talk about the legacy. So here comes what comes out of this. One, we get the Philippines. It does open up our ability to trade with Asia, and the Philippines will come back again as a place that will fight in World War II. Cuba, we get a naval base from this, Guantanamo Bay, which we still have today. Puerto Rico, we remained in military control for a while. And then we annexed Hawaii. So I think in your notes it says what state did we annex or get. It was Hawaii. We got Hawaii from this, which also gives us an access point to Asia. So that's what we get out of it. Here's the big things about this war. This starts with this nationalistic holding on to one's power. And then it's a former superpower going against an up-and-coming superpower, us. We don't really get recognition until World War I with our ability to fight. And I would say it's not until World War II that like everybody starts going, okay, America's like the country when it comes to like military aid. But this one proves it to ourselves that we're a capable military force. It doesn't prove to everybody. It proves it to us though that we're capable. Here's what you're gonna do now. You're gonna have, I think it's like 8 pictures on the excuse me, on the packet. Those 8 pictures are, can you refer to the lesson I just taught you, to hopefully tell me what each picture represents, okay? In the picture, I think one of them was a horse. So which group of people dealt with horses? One of them shows like numbers of ships that are wooden and steel. Which battle am I talking about? One picture refers to a sickness, and it has like a yellow face on it because like he's sick. And what is that referring to? Just put down the terms for that. Once you get that all done, your goal is to continue your proposals for tomorrow. So whatever you're doing, whether fixing gun deaths in our country, improving healthcare costs, as in like lowering them, improving education, whatever it is, go ahead and work on that the rest of the hour quietly. If you somehow get done with all of that, then you need to do something quiet at your table, desk, by yourself until the end of the hour, work on a different project. Whatever you got to do, as long as it's quiet and courteous to the sub and everybody else, that's what you're going for. I will see you tomorrow, I hope. Peace out.